You're listening to Tash and Nix.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for joining us again for another conversation.
What up?
How's your week been, Nicole?
It's been good. A little bit crazy. It's 2021 and we're just right in the beginning of it. And if you guys know anything or been following the news, I'm sure you saw what happened a few days ago with Donald Trump, and how 2021 is literally starting off with a bang.
Yeah, even if you don't follow the news, you've seen it on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram by this point, just how crazy this week was. This is kind of like 2020.5 so far, but I'm still going to be hopeful and give it a chance.
We've already been traumatized by 2020, so at this point, bring it on. You know what I mean? I'm done, but...
So today we're going to have a little bit more of a serious conversation regarding depression and anxiety. Remember last week I sent you that post about Taraji P Henson and kind of what she was going through during the pandemic and contemplating suicide?
Yeah, I remember being really shocked when you sent it, because I was like, oh my God, this is so relatable, and this is something we should definitely talk to our viewers and listeners about, because it is something that has affected all of us. I mean, with the pandemic happening, when COVID, when we first heard about COVID and then we learned about being quarantined, I remember thinking, this is impossible, it's not going to happen, you know? And then going through those life changes was a huge, it was overwhelming,
Yeah. And Taraji is just so bubbly, and she's so funny, and you look at somebody like that and you would never think behind all of that they're hurting, but that's honestly very common for a lot of people.
It really is. And I feel like that's what we were talking about, on the inside, people suffer silently because they don't want you to be pulled into their sadness, but on the outside, people who are looking, they just see a happy, fun person and they have no idea that person is really suffering. So yeah.
How did you feel when the pandemic first started? How did you deal with that?
I remember being at work and I remember them talking about possibly going into a lockdown, and I didn't understand that at first. And I remember telling that to my sister. One of the job she has kind of alerted her ahead of time, so she kind of let us know ahead of time. And so I remember telling my coworkers, we're gonna eventually get locked down. He's like, that's never gonna happen, and it did. For me, I can definitely relate to her story about just the depression overall and feeling alone, because at this time, not only did my work environment change, I had to go work from home, which I was not thrilled about, because I'm a huge believer in separating home life from work life, and now you have work life at home. Not only that, then I have 2 children and they were both home at this point and they're younger. I have a 2nd grader now and a 5th grader, and it was so hard for me. I'm not gonna lie, just transitioning to working from home and then having the kids, because when the teachers were also unprepared, and it was hard. I remember thinking I feel like I'm sinking, and I didn't really talk to too many people about it, but it was so hard for me. And then to top it off, people were passing away from it. I had an aunt and an uncle who passed away, and it was overwhelming. That happened, plus me going back to work, plus me literally having to be a teacher and do my job, because no matter what, your job is hey, the business comes first no matter what. So you have to do your work and your job, and it was overwhelming for me. And I remember reaching out to my supervisor and just being honest with her, because I was like, I'm overwhelmed right now. Because some people have the luxury, women don't have this luxury, especially when with children. Some people have the luxury of just going home and working from home and having no distractions, not me. So I actually had to take a whole week off, and I was grateful for that, because my supervisor was so understanding, and she allowed me to take some time off too because of the deaths in my family. I didn't even tell her about it. At first, I just kind of kept it in, and that's probably the worst thing you can do if you are feeling overwhelmed with emotion. You should not just keep it in.
Yeah.
What about you? Did it affect you?
Definitely. During the pandemic, when it first started, I was fine. We just got back from Vegas, so we were also on a high from that. So for the first couple of weeks, it wasn't that bad. And then as the weeks went by, and every day you turn on the news and all they're talking about is the coronavirus, it started to kind of weigh on me. It was I would get 12 hours of sleep and I would wake up feeling like I got 5 minutes.
Dang.
all I would do is log into work, go to sleep, get up in the morning, log into work again, do the same thing every day. And I was completely by myself, just me, no dog, no nothing, no kids. And it seemed like good during the pandemic to be in a spot where like you don't have any kids, so you don't have that worry either. But being completely alone was one of the hardest things like ever. I had to kind of like snap myself out of it and like, okay, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna read books. We started talking about the podcast more during that time, so it just made me kind of think about a lot of things in perspective and kind of what I wanted in the future. But it was hard. Like some days I felt like I had to drag myself out of bed. I was overwhelmingly sad. It was one of the hardest times of my life, and I didn't even tell my family about it because, like you said, like you don't want to bother people. Yeah, you don't want to bother people with your problems or burden them. And I don't want to tell my aunt or somebody and have them worry about me. I don't want to tell my friend who's already dealing with her kids about my problems. Like you just feel like you don't want to like burden them. And I know I had the type of family that wouldn't feel that way. Yeah. But for me, like that's just how I felt. But I think in the future I would definitely speak to them about it. Yeah. And then I got randomly sick and I had to have surgery.
Oh yes, I was I was like, what the hell? Yeah. This 2020 was rough, and you got sick, and I was like, what the heck, you know? And then you had to
not with Corona.
Yes.
Not with Corona.
It was terrible. It was like I was frustrated too, because this is another topic we'll talk about another time. But I felt like they were ignoring how you felt. You know, and I was like getting frustrated because, you know, I live all the way in Austin, and I mean, she does have family here as well, but at the same time, you know, it's just like, I know how it feels to be alone, but I live in Austin and I don't have family there, so just my children really, and so it's just like, I really do have to depend on myself. But no, I can relate to that, feeling like just dragging yourself out of bed, literally. I would have to start literally getting ready like I was getting ready for work. That's the only thing that kind of made me get into that mode. And I just every day I woke up, I made sure to like act like I was getting ready for work, and then I would sit down and do my work. Now in the meantime, I'm interrupted because I have a child behind me that's constantly needing whatever, and if they have tests, I'm supervising it. I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like I got to a point where I just realized I had to reach out to the teacher. I was like, listen, I have to work, I have a job, and I have to do it, you know. I was like, I can do my best, but like I'm not going to get to things until after I get off, most likely, you know. But and then not only that, while we were dealing with the pandemic, dealing with being on lockdown, quarantine, we both had deaths in the family. Then the police brutality, George Floyd, it was so overwhelming. It was like, I came back after that week that I had off, and then that stuff happened, and I was just like, I was so sad and so overwhelmed and so scared and so tired, you know, because like every little thing was breaking my heart, you know. And it was just like, what's next, you know, what can you do, you know? So you guys let us know if you experienced those types of things during the pandemic yourself. We'll definitely talk to you guys about resources towards the end that'll help you if you do ever feel that way, pandemic or not, because we don't want you to feel like you're sinking and you have no one else to talk to. It's very important, I feel like, especially in the Black community, that we speak about our feelings, because we are so used to repressing them, and that's just historically, you know. So
we're so used to thinking like, oh, if I go to therapy, like people are gonna think I'm crazy, or oh my gosh, she has issues. That's like the best thing you can do for yourself. It is. I recently just started looking into it, because even past the pandemic, like, you know, me and you have talked about like our childhood and certain things that have like happened throughout our lives.
Correct.
And I'm like, damn, I should have been talking to somebody when I was younger, but I just never did, because it had that stigma to it. You don't want to like feel like you're crazy or something wrong with you.
I know you had spoken and mentioned it before. I know you talked about childhood, but when you're older, you said something about like college as well, or after college.
Yeah. So when I graduated from college back in 2014, damn, that seems like a minute ago. I had moved to Austin. I didn't have any friends there, so I was like starting over again. And once you graduate college, it's kind of like, what now? Like you're fully an adult. Like, sure, when you turn 18, you go to college, you're an adult, but you still kind of have like that community around you. Yeah. And you're still going to school and stuff. So this is my first time like really being out on my own. That was a super depressing time for me. I was like tired, irritable. I was sad like every day. Where I was working at, I had like met this friend. We went to my first school together, HT in Austin. And then like it started to get like a lot better. I started hanging out with her. A couple years later I met you. By that point, like I kind of had like my friends in Austin. So it did get better, but for a while it was so like depressing. I think a lot of people that go through that like graduate from college too, it's kind of like, what now? Especially when you can't find a job and you gotta move back home. So that was just another point in my life where it was just so like depressing. I should have gotten help then, but again, then I was afraid to like reach out or look crazy and stuff like that. So I feel like kind of with like growth and maturity now, I see that like getting help isn't something that should be frowned upon. You should feel weird about. Like you're trying to get better for yourself so you can have like a healthy life. There's nothing wrong with that.
And you speaking as a mom to other moms, you will not do your children justice if you are depressed. You're just existing, merely just existing, if you don't. I got help during the pandemic myself. I used a resource from my own job, but personally, I've had therapy before, especially after my divorce, so I'm not new to it. I'm grateful that I went through it. Speaking from another perspective, she talked about after college, childhood depression is a big thing. People, grown-ups realize, hey, we're going through a pandemic, etc., and we are affected, but think about the kids. Kids are super resilient, but they probably went through the same thing, the same feelings. I don't get to see my friends anymore. I don't get to go out that often, especially if you have children that have, who are immunocompromised, like you have to realize that they probably are going through some of the same things you're going through. I know when I was a child, I battled with depression. I don't know about other people, but I know for me, growing up in a foreign family, when both my parents are immigrants to this country, sometimes they don't take seriously how you feel or your feelings into consideration whatsoever. My father was very hard. He was really not only the provider, but he raised us for the most part. But just because somebody raises you doesn't mean they're always doing the best job. Honestly, and he was very hard. His words would cut. He was very, a verbally abusive person, and that's just honest. And, I just feel like there were times, I remember one time getting really upset after my dad did something just really messed up. And I just went to my room, turned off the light, closed the door in the closet, and just started to pray to God. Because I was just so over it. Like, what more can you do? My father was also in the military, and I think a lot of times military doesn't really think about the after effects. He was in it for 21 years, and he kind of would do things like raise us like soldiers, put us through certain drills. He probably needed therapy as well, so childhood depression is a very real thing, and it is something that you should definitely pay attention to if you have children yourself. If you went through that as a child, you're likely to go through it again as an adult as well, so that's something that you should think about, and just sort of come to terms with, because if you don't have that outlet, you're going to start hurting yourself inward. I mean, even your energy and your emotions, you can get ulcers from stress alone. So it is better to speak to somebody about it.
No, I agree. You don't want to have kids. We talk about all the time how I want to have kids someday, and you don't want to go into having kids and making the same mistakes that your parents did, like how you spoke about your dad. Probably because his dad did the same thing to him, and his dad did the same thing to him, and it just kind of rolls over from generation to generation. So get help. There's nothing wrong with getting help, talking to somebody. Talk to your friends, family. That's what they're there for. So I know if people feel like me, they don't want to burden that person. Just if they're your friends, they're gonna listen to you.
They will.
So
and they'll try their best to offer help. And I know how we both felt we didn't want to reach out to other people. If you still feel that way, you guys, if you are employed, there is your EAP program, Employee Assistance Program. You can just contact HR, ask them what your resources are. A lot of times, if you have insurance, I believe that they cover the first 6 sessions for you. And
a lot of people don't even know that. They don't know the information. Another reason why they don't get therapy is because they think it costs so much. And
it's costly. You can also talk to them and say, hey, would you be willing to lower my rate? Because sometimes they will do that because of they're understanding people. And that happened to me twice, where my therapist after divorce, she offered at a discounted rate because it is true. It does suck when you think about poverty, not even just poverty from maybe, I guess, that class, working class all the way up to middle class, you know, we have to save our coins, you know, and so maybe we don't want to spend, you know, $100 an hour for therapy because honestly we could use it for something else, but then we're not fixing ourselves inside. So your employee assistance program will absolutely be a good resource for you. There are free apps you can download as well. They're like relaxation apps, meditation apps, positive thinking. That's something you guys should do. I talked to Tash about that. At one point last year, I just started doing these things and sending myself messages throughout the day. I still have them now on my phone. And you may not think at one point that it's going to be helpful, but like I set them off at different times during the day. And then sometimes I don't pay attention. I check my phone and I have all of these reminders of these things, and it just helped me to kind of get out of it. Another resource you guys can do is 211. 211 is just like a local number. I'm not sure if that's only in Texas. I think there's like probably 611, etc. You can call that number as well, and they have resources for you. And then last but not least, there's the National Suicide Prevention phone number. I'm gonna look over here for it. It's 1-800-273-8255. You guys can also call that number. There are people who talk to you for free. Now, I will say this. I called that number one time, a long time ago, and I was trying to get out of my relationship, and I did not reach somebody who was, they probably shouldn't have been in that job.
Yeah.
You know.
Have you ever tried BetterHelp.com?
Mm-mm.
So BetterHelp is a new thing online that I discovered that I plan on to start using.
Okay.
They ask you a series of questions, and you can kind of get a therapist that you think kind of matches you and your needs. I specifically wanted a Black woman.
Okay.
Especially going through this year, not only dealing with the pandemic, with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff that commonly you hear more in the Black household, especially from child trauma. So I wanted somebody that I felt like, you know, could relate to me, I could relate to them.
What was the name of the name?
It's called BetterHelp.com.
Okay.
And we will put all of this in the description and everything, so you guys can have that.
Okay. I know that there's some other ones too, like you can go online, and there's even people who will offer discounted rates. I think I've seen something like that during the pandemic and stuff like that, but no, that's a really good one. I didn't know you could cater it to like exactly what you need. And I agree with you on that. Like, to me, when I was looking, I also wanted a Black woman as well, because I just wanted someone who could relate to me, and she was helpful. I will say that she was very helpful.
Yeah, and if by chance they don't match you with somebody that you're kind of vibing with, you can request somebody else at any time. You can set up sessions at any time. There's no limit to it.
Yeah.
And you can get a quote and get financial aid. I believe they quoted me about like $230 a month, which is pretty affordable to be able to talk to this person whenever I want.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good site. I think people should look into more.
Okay, I didn't know that. I'm gonna look at that as well, because that's very interesting. But yeah, if you guys do ever feel that way, reach out to somebody. Like we said, use one of the resources that we're gonna link as well, or that we mentioned, and take care of yourselves. You know.
If you guys have any resources we didn't mention that you think are good for other people to know, like, please comment them. I'd love to know them. Nicole love to know them. I'm sure other people could utilize them.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope you guys are taking care of yourself. Right now, it's a pretty hectic time in the United States of America. Oh, I don't know if I'm proud to be an American right now, but yeah, I mean, definitely take your mental health seriously and use the resources that you can. And hopefully you guys are doing good. And thanks again for listening to our podcast. Make sure they subscribe.
Yes,
like,
please subscribe. Thank you so much for listening again, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.